everyone, welcome to the Grown Up Millennial. So this is a follow-up on a previous video I did about a month or two ago, talking about my upcoming wedding and some of the things that we were doing to bring down costs while still making it the wedding that we wanted it to be. Well, wedding has happened. We're about, I don't know, it's been a couple weeks now, and I wanted to take a moment and share not only how much we actually spent, so actual costs and expenses, so that you guys could really understand where it went from, but also thoughts that we had, areas that maybe could have been less expensive, or why we made the decision to pay more for this or that. But before we dive into the actual numbers, I want to mention that not everything that we did is possible for everyone else, and there's a lot of stuff that we got for free or that was loaned to us that may not be capable for everyone else. But on the flip side, if we had not gotten those things for free or had been lent to us by friends and family, our wedding would have also looked different. So the cost was really driving what kind of wedding we were going to have. You know, I'm sure I'll get some comments like, oh, well, she actually had to pay for any of that stuff. It would have been twice the cost. And I'm like, that's true. But if I actually had to pay for that stuff, I would have changed my plan and my wedding wouldn't have looked like this. Like I mentioned, I didn't start out with this like dream wedding and figure out how to make that wedding happen at a specific budget. I started with a budget and said, okay, what are the things that I want? What are the priorities? How do we get there? So just as a disclaimer, obviously not everything that I was able to get for free or reduced cost will be possible for everyone else. But if I hadn't been able to, I also would have amended or adjusted the wedding plan to meet the budget that I was aiming for. What was our actual budget? So we were aiming to spend no more than $3,000 to $4,000 in total for the whole wedding, and I'm happy to say that we actually did meet that. It was on the higher end of the range. We spent $3,750 on our wedding. So let's just dive into the actual costs of that. I have my notes here, so if you see me looking down or you hear like the paper crumple, that's why. $3,750 for the whole shebang. Note that we did not do any like pre or post wedding events. I did have a bachelorette party with my bridesmaids. My husband had a dinner with his groomsmen, and we had a rehearsal dinner in so much as we made them come and rehearse, and then we bought pizza. But we didn't have like a big formal rehearsal dinner. We didn't have a after wedding brunch or anything like that. So this includes just the rehearsal dinner and the wedding. Our groomsmen and bridesmaids paid for the bachelorette and bachelor parties. So amendment there. So, but for $3,750 was the total cost. So let's start with venue and rentals. So this was probably the biggest cost savings, is we only spent $275 total on the venue and rentals. And really that cost only covers the dish rentals. So I wanted real dishes, so we rented like 80 glasses, 80 dinner plates, 80 appetizer plates, and 80 sets of forks and knives. Obviously it would be a lot cheaper if you went with disposables, but I was trying to go a little bit more eco-friendly for the wedding. I didn't want to have a bunch of disposables, but I also didn't want to have to think about all that trash and how many trash cans we had to have. But, you know, egg on my face, they all came wrapped in plastic, like plastic wrap, so it didn't really help a ton on the trash and plastic part. But it was nice and people seemed to appreciate it. And we got these like water goblet type things that could be used for wine, beer, as well as like just regular soft drinks. So we tried to pick something multi-purpose. We didn't want to have to like have 3 or 4 different glasses for different alcohols or drinks. What are the things that we were able to borrow or get for free? Well, pretty much everything else. So the venue, as I mentioned, was my husband's aunt's backyard, so that was free. We borrowed the tables and chairs from my husband's work. They were very generous to let us do that. And then pretty much everything else was borrowed from a family friend of my husband. She hosts a lot of parties, so we got this big tent for shade, the lights, tablecloths, vases, umbrellas, shade sails, servingware, like you name it, she had it. So, like I said, that was a big benefit. If we had to buy or rent all of this, our wedding would have looked a lot different. We probably would have chosen kept our guest list a lot smaller. So we had about 80 people at the wedding. Probably would have kept it down to like 30 or 40, just really small, intimate wedding. But because we got all that stuff for free, we were able to increase our food budget and host more people. So that's a potential trade-off there. Like for example, I really love blue. We wanted really simple colors, so we didn't go to that friend and say, hey, these are the colors you have to have. She told us the colors that were available, what she had, and we said, oh, well, we love white and blue. Let's go with that. And then we sort of built around that. So again, it's building around availability rather than having a specific thing in your mind and then trying to cram that into a budget. Next, let's talk about the legal stuff real quick. So that was a total cost of $206. We spent $100 on our officiant. That was a family friend, but you know, it is part of her work. That was the price that she gave us, so that's what we paid. And then we spent about $100 on our marriage license, because that's how much it costs in the county of Los Angeles. Next, this is like our second largest category, was clothes, rings, looks, and stuff. So that total cost was $875. We spent about $130 on my husband's ring on his wedding band. We spent $60 getting both of my rings resized. So if you didn't know, my engagement ring and my wedding band were both inherited from great-grandmothers of mine. So I didn't pay for either of them, but I did have to pay to get them resized. For my husband, we spent $120 on getting him a new dress shirt and suspenders. We went ahead and bought suspenders for all of the groomsmen so that they would match. So that's included in that cost. For my dress, it was, again, it was the dress that both my mother and my grandmother wore. So I got that for free, but it was really old and needed some updating. So I spent $500 getting that cleaned and tailored. I spent $25 getting a new pair of blue shoes that were very cute and very comfortable. And we spent $30 on a haircut for my husband before the wedding. I did not get my hair cut. I cut it myself. And then I spent $0 on any of my makeup, hair, etc. My bridesmaids did my hair. I didn't wear makeup. I'm not a big fan of makeup, so I didn't wear any, except for I think I like a little concealer. Stress sits, you know. But no makeup. Hair was done for me. I didn't do my nails. Like I filed them and cleaned them up, but I don't really like wearing long nails anyways. And I couldn't think of a color that I'd be happy with. We talked about doing it, but we ran out of time, to be honest. I'm giving all these reasons why we didn't do it, but we thought about doing it and just ran out of time. And then in terms of the bridesmaids and groomsmen, I mentioned this in the last video, but we went ahead and basically let them pick what they wanted to wear. So I told the bridesmaids that it had to be navy blue, sort of match, so that they're all sort of matching. And like, you know, couldn't be like a party dress or a long formal gown, but otherwise buy whatever they wanted at the price point they were comfortable with. And so they all looked great. They all, I think two of them wore like similar dresses, but they all pretty much had different dresses. They were able to find a style that worked for their different body types. And as I understand, they all plan to wear their dresses again, which is awesome. Because you hear that, like people spend $200 on a bridesmaid's dress and they say, oh, you'll definitely wear this again. So I didn't have them buy a specific bridesmaid's dress, they just bought a dress in this color that they could wear again, and they looked amazing. For the groomsmen, we told them to wear a white button-up shirt because everyone has one, except my husband. We actually had to buy him one, but everyone else had one. And gray pants. We had originally aimed for them to be wearing dark gray pants, but not everyone had that. Sort of crunch time, and I really didn't want people to have to rush out and buy things just for this. So we just let them wear any gray pants that they had, and it turned out looking good. And then, as I mentioned, we bought suspenders off Amazon and they all wore the same suspenders. Obviously, this is a pretty expensive category. Some thoughts on this. So the dress, I otherwise would not have spent that much on a dress. If I didn't have this dress, I probably would have just bought something for like 100 or 200 bucks online, not something that was specifically a wedding dress. But this was pretty sentimental to me. It was a beautiful dress. I really liked how it turned out. So that cost was worth it to me. But again, if I didn't have that option, I wouldn't have gone out and spent $500 on just any old dress or spent even more money trying to replicate this dress. So something to keep in mind there. Rings, again, I'm very fortunate that I was able to inherit these rings. The thing is, I've had these rings, I've had the engagement ring forever. So even when we started dating, I told him, like, hey, if you ever propose to me, don't buy a ring. I have one, I love it. It's stupid to buy another one. But if I hadn't had it, I probably would not have cared if I had got an engagement ring. I probably would have said, let's just spend that money elsewhere. And then I did see some very cute, very simple wedding bands on Etsy for like $100. So I probably just would have gone with that. You know, let's say the value of these rings is $1,000 or $2,000. I have no idea. I wouldn't have gone out to spend $2,000 to get these equivalent things. I have these because they were gifted to me and inherited, but I otherwise would not have spent the money to go get them. And then my partner's ring. It's just a beautiful ring off Etsy. I think I'd throw it. All right, next, flowers and decor. So as I mentioned, we got a lot of the tablecloths and the lights and stuff for free. So this is gonna cover mostly smaller stuff. We spent $200. So we spent $150 on flowers and $50 printing out pictures of our dead relatives and placing them along the aisleways. So how did we get our flowers so cheap? Well, a couple ways we did that. First, I bought our flowers from a wholesaler. So this is the person who sells flowers to florists. So they don't come arranged or anything. You just get big buckets of flowers. One of my bridesmaids went ahead and made all the centerpieces and bouquets for us. So that was, I think she made like 25 centerpieces and 5 bouquets and then 5 little boutonnieres. 2, we picked a inexpensive flower. So sunflowers are generally going to be pretty inexpensive. They are in season in summer, obviously, so even cheaper in summer during the time we had our wedding. And we picked a very basic filler. So we did not have very complicated centerpieces. No one's going to write home about them, but I think they looked really nice. Because we only picked like a main flower and a filler, put those together, it came out looking nice without a ton of work and effort, and we didn't have to spend a lot of money getting like different flowers. And then the benefit of sunflowers is because they're sort of big and bright and beautiful, you don't need nearly as many to have an impact. Like for example, if you're doing like tiny roses, I can't even name a bunch of flowers, but like irises, for example, beautiful, but they're smaller, so you need like a lot more to have an impact versus, I think my bouquet had like 5 sunflowers in it, whereas if you're doing irises, you probably need like 20 or 30, as an example. Next is our largest category, food and alcohol. So we spent in total $1,250 on food and alcohol. Half of that was on food and half of that was on alcohol. So for the food, that includes all the appetizers, which were pretty simple. We did like cut up fruit, veggies, hummus, chips, and then something that's called Cajun caviar. So it's like a salsa, but with like corn and black-eyed peas, and it's really dense, really tasty, huge bowl of it. That also included dinner. So for dinner we had brisket that my dad smoked, chicken that my dad grilled. I got those Beyond Meat sausages that are really tasty for the vegetarians, because I'm always sad when vegetarians aren't thought of. So we got the Beyond Meat sausage. We grilled corn on the cob, which again, corn is in season right now, so nice and cheap there. Baked beans, coleslaw, a big green salad. And then my brother made a bunch of butters, like different butter flavors for the corn, and my dad made a bunch of barbecue sauces for the meat. And then that also included the cupcakes. So we had 2 flavors of cupcakes. One was red velvet, which is my favorite, and another was Oreo, which is for my husband. And we had about 60 of each of those cupcakes, and my bridesmaids made those. And then that also includes, we bought a bunch of pizza for the night before. We had a rehearsal thing or combined with kind of a work party. So that's where we were making cupcakes and cutting fruits and vegetables and making the centerpieces and stuff and finishing up cleaning of the backyard. So we sort of combined that. And I bought a bunch of food for everybody, and I think a couple bottles of wine and stuff. So that was included here as well. So $625. Not too bad. I do want to mention some costs that other people covered for us that we otherwise would have had to spend. So my dad, as sort of a wedding gift, did buy the meat, the brisket and the chicken for us. He didn't tell me what he spent, but my guess is probably $300 to $500. You can add that in there, but on the flip side, we had way too much food, like just an insane amount of leftovers. I think we forgot to put out most of the coleslaw and the baked beans, so those didn't get eaten at all. Going back, if any of us had more experience in trying to cater for a large event, probably would have bought a lot less food than we did. So I think that might average out the cost, but I honestly don't know for sure. And then on the alcohol side, we spent $625 on alcohol. That covered, and the food also included drinks, non-alcoholic drinks. So lemonade, iced tea, ice, water, etc. We didn't do soda, we just did lemonade, iced tea, water in like big serving pitcher things. I know, I'm so eloquent. But so back to the alcohol, we like I said, $625 on alcohol. That bought 3 what are called 6-toll kegs. So we bought 3 types of beer, a Guinness, a lager, and a hef. We didn't even get into the 3rd keg. So I think we got through most of the hef and like half of the Guinness. Amending that, probably would have just bought 2 kegs, but I thought it would be 3. And then we also bought 20 bottles of wine, mostly red, and some whites. My mom did buy us some bottles of white wine that were on sale. I think she bought us like 12 bottles, but she got them on sale. There was like a bulk discount, so I think she might have spent like $100 to $200 on that. Most of the wine got drunk. There were a few bottles left over. A lot of that beer didn't get drunk. Probably would have bought 1 less keg. Something we didn't really take into account was, so we were having our wedding on a Sunday. We knew people were gonna leave early. We knew they weren't gonna drink as much, which was awesome. But I didn't think we anticipated how little they were gonna drink and how quickly they were gonna leave. So we started our wedding at 4. I think we thought most people were probably gonna start leaving around 8 or 9. A good chunk started leaving at like 7, which we're not mad at them. You know, they got family and lives and babysitters are expensive. We hadn't taken that into account in our calculations. So we had expected that the folks that do drink would probably have 4 or 5 drinks for the night. I think most of them maybe only had 1 or 2. So that's a big reason we had so much leftover alcohol. In addition, so we actually bought a bunch of wine, but in the craziness of it all, we left all the red wine at our house. We only brought the white wine to the wedding. And it wasn't a big deal. When I heard about it, I was like, what? But I didn't stress about it too long. But the CEO of the company that my mom works at, he is a big red wine lover. And so he sort of came to the rescue. So he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go buy some. So he left the wedding, went to like Bevmo or Total Wine or something, bought a bunch of red wine, and then came and served it to people. I didn't see him doing it, but I heard a lot of really funny, cute stories of like this older gentleman running around with like bottles of red wine, pouring it for people. I started calling him the Jolly Sommelier, the Jolly Wine Guy. And it was just really funny, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. But if that hadn't happened, we would have used the red wine that we actually bought. But now we have a bunch of red wine that we need to drink ourselves. So yay. That was food and alcohol. Entertainment, we spent $0. Music, I think I mentioned in the last video, we just had DJ Spotify, so we just made our own playlist and played that over the speakers. Speakers and mic were also borrowed from my husband's work. Did a couple games, but that was led by our bridesmaids, like the shoe game. You can check it out on YouTube, it's very cute. Oh, we did have some lawn games too, which we borrowed from Brian's aunt. So those were free, and then we made giant Jenga, which was a lot of fun. There were a couple kids there that really enjoyed it. There was some old wood that was getting thrown out, so we held on to that. So again, free, and then we just cut it and planed it ourselves. Entertainment was $0. Another big cost was the photographer. So we spent $650 on our photographer. That might sound like a lot to some people, but in LA, a standard wedding package, like a really basic wedding photography package, starts at least $1,000. So I got a few different quotes, and that's where they were all starting. So that is a really great discount. It was a friend of my husband who took the photos for us. She did an awesome job. She got us the photos within like like 3 or 4 days, all edited and beautiful. So those are the photos you've been seeing throughout this video. So good job, Caitlin. I haven't asked her. We'll find out. This probably would be good advertising for her. So if she agrees, if she feels comfortable, I'll put her link down in the bio if you are in LA and looking for a great wedding photographer. So she gave us a discount. Obviously, still not an insignificant cost, but definitely don't regret it, would do that again. And then finally, we just have sort of like $300 in miscellaneous expenses. So that includes some money that we gave to my brother, who did a lot of cooking in conjunction with my dad. My brother works in the service industry. He works at a restaurant, so they don't get paid time off, but he did take 2 days off over the weekend to work, to do this for us. And weekends are very busy, lucrative times when you work in restaurants, so I felt bad. I want to say I felt bad. So I wanted to acknowledge the fact, like, there was money he was losing to do this free labor for us, so we paid him for that. And then the remainder is like bridesmaids gifts and groomsmen's gifts that we're gonna be sending. We haven't given them yet. I'm not gonna say what they are. They're simple but sweet, but I don't want them to see this video and find out what they are before we send them. As well as thank you cards. I think we spent like $50 on thank you cards. Still gotta send those out. I think we have to mail like 30 or 40 of them. So stamps. Oh, we didn't spend any money on invites. We did e-invitations, so that was free. We did have to mail out like maybe 10 or 15 invitations to like older people or folks that we know are not so good about checking their email. But we had a bunch of stamps left over from Christmas or something, so I just used those. So I probably should include that cost here, but I didn't. So that is the total cost, $37.50 for what I think was a pretty gosh darn beautiful wedding. People said the food was amazing. It was very relaxed. People had a nice time. I'm very happy with how it turned out. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, your wedding is not necessarily going to look like my wedding. What you prioritize may be different. As I mentioned, there were some things that were worth the cost to me that could have been cheaper, and then there's things that we got really cheap that we wouldn't have paid for otherwise. If we had to pay full price or at all for them, we may not have used them. I hope you found this helpful. Just give some thoughts on how we got the cost down, what we did and didn't do. So let me know in the comments, what would you have done differently? What tips and tricks did you learn from your own wedding? Anything that sort of surprised you or that you're looking forward to? Just have a discussion, because engagement and YouTubers and I do read all the comments, and I really love that you guys choose to share your thoughts with me. So thank you so much for watching. See you later.